At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
This time of year, everyone talks about going dry. But at Athletic Brewing Company, we're skipping that because we prefer going athletic, which isn't dry at all. From crisp Goldens to hoppy IPAs and limited releases in between, you'll find something that fits your style. Every single non-alcoholic brew is packed with flavor and the same craft experience you love. So yeah, you could call it dry, but there's really nothing dry about it. Find your new favorite near beer at athleticbrewing.com. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times.
This episode is brought to you by FX's The Beauty Official Podcast. Join host Evan Ross Katz on the official podcast for FX's hottest new series, The Beauty, taking you behind the scenes with its amazing stars as they discuss the show's most jaw-dropping moments. Featuring Evan Peters, Anthony Ramos, Jeremy Pope, Ashton Kutcher, Rebecca Hall, Bella Hadid, Meghan Trainor, Isabella Rossellini, Jessica Alexander, and Ari Grainer. Search FX's The Beauty wherever you listen to podcasts.
Does picking an outfit have you running a little too fashionably late? We get it. Great taste takes time. That's why Drizzly, the #1 app for alcohol delivery, has your back with the largest selection of beer, wine, and spirits, delivered in under 60 minutes. Convenience never goes out of style. So if you need to spend some extra time in the mirror instead of at the store, download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com today.
Hello, this is Jay Scott, and you are listening to The Hook, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. Hope everyone's having a great day. I'd like to welcome back Crash Crafton to the podcast. We last heard from Crash when we talked about Richie Kotzen, the awesome guitar player. How you doing today, Crash?
Doing really good. How about yourself?
Doing well. Thanks again for doing this. Appreciate you coming back on. We had a fun discussion.
Not a problem.
Yeah, it was great talking about Richie Kotzen and all entails, and I know there's so much more that we didn't cover during that conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we'll do a part 2 at some point, but
part 2 through 100.
Yeah, they do like a mini series, like Roots or something like that, you know. But a band that you and I have also spoken about is our next topic, a band that people should be listening to: the country rock, the southern rock, the blues rock, the hard rock band Blackberry Smoke from Atlanta, Georgia, is who we will be discussing today. You know, when I mentioned Blackberry Smoke on Twitter, I saw them twice earlier this year. They came to Waukegan, Illinois, which is about 30, 40 minutes outside Chicago. And then the next night they played in Rockford, which is about an hour and a half outside of Chicago. So I bought tickets for the Waukegan show, never saw them live, and was just completely blown away. It was their acoustic show. They were doing an acoustic tour, and the style or the stage was more or less like a living room. So I went and saw them, was completely blown away, went and saw them the following night in Rockford, again blown away. The opening act was Ida May, which is a band out of the UK, a blues outfit, a husband and wife that were just incredibly awesome as well. But and then I saw them the other night with Tedeschi Trucks Band up here in Aurora, and they were the opening act. They did a 45-minute set. It was a electric set, not the acoustic. And I know they're coming back in September at the House of Blues in Chicago with a band called The Record Company, who I've yet to check out. But I've seen them 3 times in the last 5 months. An awesome band. Charlie Starr is more or less the brains, the leader behind the band. He's the lead vocalist and guitar player. They feature Richard Turner on bass, Britt Turner, the Turner brothers, Richard Turner and Britt Turner on bass and drums. Paul Jackson, guitar and vocals, helps the harmonizing of their lyrics and their songs, and then Brandon Still on keyboards. So what was your introduction to Blackberry Smoke Crash?
Trying to remember exactly what year it was. I think it was 2002. Went to see Jackal and talking with Jesse James Dupree, and he was telling me about him. He had just produced him and told me to get a hold of Britt, who's the drummer, and get a hold of him. They had like a 3-song demo out at that time. And so I emailed him, and a week or two later got a 3-song demo, and it had, it's got Train Rolling on it, Sanctified Woman. I'm drawing a blank on the third track that I had on it. Normal Town, Sanctified Woman, and Train Rolling were the 3 tracks that were on this demo. And I was like really impressed. And from there, just been following them ever since. Yeah, they put out their first CD in 2003, the full length. Through they put it out, independently.
Was that the Bad Luck Ain't No Crime album?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they released that record, and then they took like 6 years to put out the next one, Little Piece of Dixie. It's kind of surprised that, so much time in between records, but they do a lot of touring, as evident as I just talked about. I mean, they are the quintessential road dog band. They do, another band that I'm familiar with that I like a lot is Lucero, who I've turned you on to. They're another band that is constantly on the road. And it's really indicative of the music industry, because any money that you're going to make, you got to tour, you got to sell merch, you got to get out there and play in front of the people.
Right. Yeah, they put out that new Honky Tonk bootlegs there in between that and Little Piece of Dixie, between Bad Luck and Little Piece of Dixie. But
okay,
that was just an EP. That was kind of a weird time for them, because they got hooked up with Dan Huff, the super producer, and Justin Niebank, and some people, and then they were wanting them to write with other people, and they were hanging around the Nashville scene or whatever, Charlie was doing writing sessions with other people, and they did that Little Piece of Dixie record in sections, like a couple songs here, and then 4 or 5 months later would do a couple more because of Dan's schedule. And so that's part of the reason why it took so long. That, and they were on tour all the same time. But they did put out that new Honky Tonk bootlegs in between there. But yeah, they were on the road that whole time.
Dan Huff is the big producer out in Nashville. Does a lot of country records, and he was also in the band Giant from the late 80s, early 90s era of music.
And ironically, he also didn't he produce, was it Cryptic Writings by Megadeth?
I think he did. You might be right on that. Yeah. Giant, I mean, that was a great band. That was an AOR band, basically. They had a couple hits on MTV, but he's found his way in the music business as a big-time producer. Did he end up doing anything with them? I mean, I know he did that one recording with them, but did he do anything else with them at all?
No, they only did that one record, the Piece of Dixie record with Dan Huff, thankfully. I don't know. I like that record, but to me, it's too. I think he tried to make them into, or wanted to make them into the whole what's current Nashville thing. And I think he, overproduced it is the best way to put it.
The country pop scene in Nashville.
Yeah, I'm trying to be politically correct.
Well, I've often said, I love old school country, right? Like the country pop is very similar to the 80s, hair metal era. And I hate to use that term, but people do identify with it, where I can't tell the difference between one artist and another.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. It's everything sounds the same. Everything's about beer drinking and whatever. It just, there's just very few artists that come out of that whole genre. I want to say Zac Brown, but I wouldn't even consider Zac Brown part of that whole thing. I think Zac Brown's his own entity and his own person and his own artist. getting back to Blackberry Smoke. So yes, I mean, they did the little piece of Dixie, but they really kind of broke through with the Whippoorwill.
Right. Ironically, on Zach Brown's label.
Yes, Southern Ground.
Yeah. Yep. Well, they had some issues there. Ironically, or not ironically, but oddly enough, the first record company that they put out Little Piece of Dixie on, if I remember right, like the record label president died, like right after they put that record out, which was on a record company called Big Karma. And so, they got the record back and then they put it out on Bama Jam, and they were getting a good amount of traction, playing some larger festivals and bigger shows and, opening for different acts and stuff. And then the head of Bama Jam ends up going to prison for bribing politicians down there in the South, somewhere, Alabama or Georgia or somewhere, so they were once again without a record label, and then Zach Brown gave them a home, and with the Whippoorwill, which I think is a masterpiece of a record.
Yeah, it's a great record.
I mean, and shows a lot of growth as a band and Charlie's songwriting.
Yes. I mean, 6 Ways to Sunday, Pretty Little Lie, One Horse Town, which is a huge recognizable song by them. Ain't Much Left to Me, which I love. The title track, it's just, Shaking Hands with the Holy Ghost is another cool track.
Up the Road.
Yeah, it's a really great record.
And Got the Blues.
What was the guy bribing politicians with? A record owner?
I don't know the full story behind it, but yeah, he ended up going to prison for bribing politicians. And something was, I don't know. I think it was if I remember right, I mean, it's been 10 plus years ago. Had something to do with some tax thing with entertainment venues or something. It's vaguely what I'm remembering off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that went belly. That record label went belly up because of that, And the record label was called Bama Jam, and they had that big Bama Jam festival and all that. And then the owner of it got caught bribing politicians or whatever.
Wow.
Ended up going to prison for it.
Now, they also gained a lot of popularity too, being connected with the Sons of Anarchy show.
Right.
They had a lot of songs, or a couple songs. I don't know if they released, soundtrack albums or people identified with the music during the show, but I know that was a big catalyst for them too.
Yeah, I can't remember what song. They had a couple of songs placed within episodes. I can't remember which ones they were, though.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I know I've heard people talk about that, and I've heard even members of the band talk about how that helped them, gain some notoriety. And that really is a lot of people do that now. You think about, what was that one hospital show? I think it's still Grey's Anatomy, where a bunch of singer-songwriters would get their songs on, that show. And it was such a huge popular show that, that's how people get their music out, because radio is not going to play you anymore. And unless you're on YouTube searching for it, people aren't going to find you. So you need an outlet like that. And bands like Blackberry Smoke, Pete Droge, who's a singer-songwriter out of Washington, state of Washington, had a lot of songs placed in movies and TV shows, and the list just goes on. But that's really how a lot of artists get discovered and how they get exposed.
Right. Yeah, I remember, what show was it? Was that NCIS they were on? They opened up. They actually performed on it. Law and Order or something. Anyways, it was only a few years ago, and I remember, my mom called me. She's like, "Me and your dad are watching TV. Guess who just performed on this TV show?" And I'm like, "Could it be Blackberry Smoke, Mom?" "Yeah, how'd you know?" But they were on Law and Order or NCIS or something like that, where they actually performed in a scene on it or whatever. Here's my parents, because I always had the hat on or a T-shirt. I got their logo tattooed on my arm, actually.
Awesome.
So But, and I always send my parents their new CDs and stuff, I know my mom listens to them, whether my dad does or not, I don't know. But my mom will tell me, I like this and I like that and I like this and I like that. They're just, there is one of their favorite shows they like to watch or whatever. I haven't had cable in years, so I don't watch TV. So.
No, yeah, but I mean, they have such a wide variety of audience, right? In the 3 times that I've seen them, I've seen, your blue collar guy, I see your white collar, people, I see kids, I see grandparents, teenagers. So they really, have a huge wide variety of fans.
It's definitely expanded from when I first saw them, which was in a little tiny club, and it was a bunch of drunk Hellraisers. And then the second time I saw them was in 2008. They opened for ZZ Top on the opening show of their In Your Face tour there in Wichita at Century 2. And I interviewed the guys before the show or whatever. And then, my girlfriend and I at the time went and watched the show, and we were back on the soundboard, watched them or whatever. And I was sitting there and I'm like, and Wichita is predominantly, it's either rap or country. Anything else, they don't really grab onto or, celebrate. You got to be rap or country. And I thought, oh God. And so, but, ZZ Top, obviously, it was a packed house, and they opened up, they played 35 or 40 minutes. I can't remember what it was. And I remember sitting there at the end of it when the lights come up and like everybody's looking at each other and like, holy shit, that was really good. All the people that we could hear and see with, in our range. And I'm just sitting there going, yes. And so they were signing, they had a merch booth, out in the commons area or whatever. So I was like, well, I'm going to go out and, tell the guys good show and whatever before ZZ Top comes on. And that merch booth was packed. I mean, it was like the line was like around, because it's in a big, Century 2 is this big circular building, like in the round type of a deal. And I mean, the freaking line was just packed. And I'm like, yes. T-shirts are flying off the shelves, CDs, and I was just like, hallelujah. And then it took another 4 years for them to get back to Wichita, which kind of perturbed me because I'd be hounding, booking agents stuff. Why don't you bring this band in? Well, they don't really have that big of a following. And I'm like, my ass, they don't. They're opening up for Zach Brown and Eric Church and Skinner and ZZ Top. And, just because they're not gangster rap or wearing skinny jeans up there talking about their tailgate and their red Solo cup,
that's such a hard thing to measure these days too. When a promoter says that, oh, they don't have much of a following. How does a local promoter figure that out? Because there's so many platforms for exposure now. Right. I mean, it used to be you could look at the Billboard charts or you could look at album sales and you could say, oh, this band is, where it's at. We need to bring them in. But album sales are what they are, and they're going to continue to decline unless it's a rare anniversary edition or something like that. Even then, it's almost like pulling teeth for people to buy that physical format, that physical copy. So then you have YouTube hits, you've got Spotify listens, but there's so many avenues people can grab the music, and how do you determine? How does a promoter in Wichita determine how many people are going to come see Blackberry Smoke? I would think Wichita being one of the more larger cities in Kansas, people would come and see them, right? People would come from parts of Colorado, maybe parts of Nebraska, obviously Kansas, maybe a little bit of Oklahoma. I imagine that people would come and see that band if they're not playing somewhere close in proximity to Wichita.
Right. Yeah, it took another 4 years. They played there on the Whippoorwill tour in 2012 it's a place called the Cotillion, or it's known as the Round Mound of Sound. It's like a band shell. It's really cool. like one of the old orchestra band shells inside of the building. And, it's got a lot of ambiance and sonics, and the acoustics in it are really unique and cool. I've heard everything from death metal bands to, acoustic music in there. And I've never heard crappy sound unless it was a sound guy didn't know what to do.
Right. And
they played there, and I was like, oh, please, Wichita, don't let me down. Don't let me down. And they had I don't think it was, at capacity, but it was up there. And then they played there in February of this year. And I wasn't able to make the show because it was right after I had the concussion. The doctor's like, yeah, you're not going. It was like 2 days after I got my really bad concussion, so I wasn't able to go. But, from what I understand, I had some friends that went, and they said it was pretty packed to them. But so they've only played Wichita 3 times. They were supposed to play one time in 2004 with Skinnerd at the Riverfest thing. And then I do believe that was when Johnny Van Zant's dad died or mom died, one of the two. But they were just pulling into Wichita, and when the Skinner guys got the news of that. And so, obviously Skinner canceled so he could go home to deal with that. And then the Riverfest people, Blackberry, the stage was up. The PA was flown. I was there, because I was going to hang out with the guys. And everything was up and ready to go. And Blackberry Smoke offered to play. They're like, get some local acts. We'll play, 3 hours if we have to. Just, make it a free show. And they wouldn't even let them do that. So they got canceled. That was in 2004. So they've only played there 3 times.
Yeah. Well, it's weird how certain markets dictate who plays when and who plays where. Like I just said at the beginning of the show, I'm going to go see them again in September. And that's the 4th time they've been here since the end of March in the Chicago area.
Yeah. 2 shows in a row, isn't it? As far as they're coming for 2 shows on that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. There's 2 shows at the House of Blues, so that's 5 times that they're going to play in this area. And the only other band that I know that does that is like Lucero. Lucero usually comes to Chicago 3-4 times a year too. And not that I'm complaining because I'm going to go see them, but it's odd that you can see them come in the Chicago area 4 times, 5 times in a year, and then you're talking Kansas, Wichita, where it's 3-4 times over a span of like 4 years. It's a unique set of circumstances, I guess.
It's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, no.
Living out here in the heartland doesn't always have its perks.
Sometimes it does, though, for some things. But Holding All the Roses was after the Whippoorwill, and that featured, rock and roll again.
Lovely video, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great video. Lay It All on Me is one of my favorites. Payback's a Bitch. And Living in the Song is another good tune.
Love that song.
Yeah.
Too High is probably my favorite on that record.
Okay.
It's weird. Is like I don't know what it is. And I'm not really a ballad guy, but it seems like between Blackberry and Richie, I kind of go for the ballads, which is weird. Except for on Bad Luck Ain't No Crime, Scared the Devil is my favorite. I love that song. But I don't know. There's something about. I thought Too High, if they would have released that to radio, or if radio would have picked it up. I don't know. Plus that, the message of it. But
we often talk about bands that are newer, right? I wouldn't consider Blackberry Smoke a new band, but they're a newer band. That makes sense,
right? As far as in the public eye,
right. And we often try to, whenever we're selling a newer band that we like, whenever I sell the Rival Sons, which I'm a big fan of, I always say, hey man, if you like Free, Bad Company, especially Paul Rodgers, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, you're going to love Rival Sons. It's got a little Delta blues feel to it. If you're going to sell someone on Blackberry Smoke, if you love Skinnerd, if you love the Eagles, you're going to love Blackberry Smoke. Because you almost have to do that in this day and age because people are so in a bubble with their music. It's very hard for people to test the waters in something new. So you almost have to say, well, hey, I know you like Skinnerd. You're going to love Blackberry Smoke. I know you love ZZ Top. you're gonna love Blackberry Smoke. So
they have to taste something familiar.
Yeah. It's, you know, I fight that battle all the time on Twitter. You know, I ran a question, or I did a question a few weeks ago, you know, about like, do you go see the opening act at a concert that you're going to? And some of the responses were just head scratchers. Like, I don't think seeing an opening act is a good use of my time. It's not an efficient way to use my time. Someone posted that.
Wow.
So I was like, what the fuck? Like the band that you are seeing, the band that you bought a ticket for, was an opening act at some point. And if you want music to survive, I know everyone says rock music is dead. It's not dead, right? It's
just not the flavor of the month.
It's not the flavor of the month. It's not the flavor of the year, because you cannot hear it anywhere on radio unless it's classic rock, or unless it's a local college station or a local independent station, because all radio stations are owned by these big conglomerates, and they just push out the same crap over and over again. They don't allow any DJ to determine what they play. There's no deep cuts. There's no, you know, it used to be when you and I were growing up, when we were younger, the radio station we tuned into, of course, would play the popular songs, right? But they would also play the sixth song or the fourth song on side 2. You know, like wow, this is a cool track. Not a hit at all. There was no demographics to worry about. There was no, you know, our advertisers want us to reach out to the young crowd. They were just going to play a good tune, whether it was a popular one or not. That's gone. And that's never coming back. So for a band like Blackberry Smoke or a band like Rival Sons, you've got to get out there and tour. You've got to get out there and play. But when someone like does not want to listen to new music and they say they're music fans, you're not a music fan. You're not. If you're a fan of music, you wanted to constantly discover new music.
Right.
You know, if you're trapped in the same stuff you were listening to 20 years ago, and you're not listening to, you know, I keep saying their names, you know, Blackberry Smoke, Rival Sons, you know, the Struts, whatever it is, whatever's new, you're losing out, because there's a lot of great new music out there. We just, you know, we did a show before on Richie Kotzen. Here's a guy whose music is top notch. I mean, it's incredible. You know, he has more popularity now because of the Winery Dogs than he did years ago. But but that guy should be playing at least small theaters, you know, and, you know, 2,000, 5,000 theaters, and he's playing small clubs, and I don't mind, right? I mean, like being able to see Richie Kotzen 10 feet from me is great. Going to Blackberry Smoke and seeing them in smaller theaters is great. I love that intimacy. But there's also some frustration being a music lover and being fans of these artists, that you wish they were big. You wish they were more popular, because all the hard work that they put in, the great songs that they write, you know, should be recognized by more people.
Exactly. And that's, I mean, Blackberry Smoke, like you said earlier, they're road dogs. I mean, I can remember when they used to play 250 to 300 dates a year.
Wow.
They trimmed it down a little, but, you know, and I think that's because they go overseas now. But so, you know, they have breaks in between there and, you know, everything, but they're still doing 200 dates a year, you know, which is almost unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't see Beyonce doing that.
No, you don't.
Or Luke Bryan or Lake Shelton or whoever the flavor of the month is, which I'm so far out of touch with that I don't even know who the flavor of the month is.
Yeah, but I the country
Florida
thing,
Georgia Line,
which I couldn't even tell you a song by the Florida Georgia Line. I couldn't even tell you a song by Luke Bryan.
I can tell you one, and that's only because it's written by Blackstone Cherry.
Really?
Yeah. They had and the only way I knew this, I went into a convenience store, and I don't remember what year this was, but the gal always listened to country radio, and I would give her all sorts of crap about it. And I walked in there one day, and I go to grab a pop or whatever. I hear this song, and I'm like, that sounds like Blackstone Cherry's Stay. I'm like, what the hell? What? And I'm like, after about 30 seconds, I'm like, that is the song. And I'm like, ooh, what, how, what, And so I walk up to the counter, and she's singing it. And I'm like, who the hell is this? And she's like, oh, this is Florida Georgia Line. And I'm like, no, it's not. And she's like, yeah, it is. And I'm like, this is not a Florida Georgia Line song. Yes, it is. It's on their CD. And I'm like, well, actually, it's a Blackstone Cherry song, but I digress. This is fucking horrible, And she was like, what? And I said, look it up online. So she looked it up, and lo and behold, writing credits, there it is, the guys from Blackstone Cherry. But I was happy for the guys in Blackstone Cherry because, it probably made them a nice chunk of change. But I wanted to gouge my ears out with a spoon. It's horrible. It's like you tone deaf. Anyway. It was just like, ugh. So that's the only way I know any of their songs.
Well, I know. Well, Charlie Starr does write for a lot of other people, though. But moving on, to the next record, right, which is Like an Arrow, which is the album that I discovered Blackberry Smoke with Sunrise in Texas. That was the song that kind of brought me in and exposed me to. Really? Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny because I have bootlegs from Blackberry Smoke dating back to 04, 05 of them playing that song. And it used to be like, why don't you put it on a record? Oh, we recorded it. We just didn't like the way it came out. And they finally, 10 years later, they put it out.
It's a great track.
But, I agree. And
is that a cover or was that co-written by somebody?
I don't have the liner notes handy, but I do believe it was a co-write.
Okay.
It may actually be a cover, but I'm thinking it was a co-write, and there was another song that they used to perform back there in 2006, 2007 that I had bootlegs of, them performing, and I was like, why don't you guys put this on a record? And somebody leaked it online, the studio version of it within the last year called Grown Woman. And I think it was either another collaboration or it might have actually been a cover that they did, or where, they recorded songs, during that whole Nashville phase or whatever. But it's on YouTube. All you got to do is, type in Blackberry Smoke Grown Woman. But I've got bootlegs where they did that song years ago, and it was just like, but they haven't put that on now. But yeah, Sunrise in Texas, I got old bootlegs of them doing that on there.
Like an Arrow also features the duet with Greg Allman, Free on the Wing. Features another great song, Like an Arrow, the title track.
Written with Brandon, the keyboardist, too.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's another, good point. Working for the Working Man was one of my favorites on that record. Let It Burn, I like. Waiting for the Thunder. Just a solid record.
That came out in a weird time. That was, when I was having health issues. I can remember being in ICU listening to that on my phone with my little headphones in, so I wouldn't disturb the ward. But that was one of the ones I just never, because it came out in a funky time in my life. Because I was in that ICU, I just never had the chance to totally crank that up as much as I wanted to, that record. And anyway, so that's The Good Life, that song on there, that's my favorite song on the record. Because, it just reminds me of the relationship that I have with my dad, who is thankfully still around as well as Charlie. But I remember, because I was going through what I was going through at the time, and I heard that song, and it just brought me to tears. And it's still, whenever I'm down, if I hear that song, it picks me up.
Music does that for a lot of people, like including myself. I know there's an artist that actually has a connection with Blackberry Smoke, Butch Walker, who is from Atlanta, Georgia. he has a relationship with the Turner brothers, Richard and Britt. And the story that Butch tells is that when he would rehearse, I don't know if this is when he had the band Marvelous 3 or if it was the Floyds or Floyd's Funk Revival. He had a couple other bands before or after Marvelous 3 before his studio stuff. But Richard and Britt were like in a death metal band.
Nihilist.
Yes, Nihilist. And they used to rehearse right next door to each other. And that's how, Butch got to know those guys. And I think it was 2 months ago, he got up and jammed with Blackberry Smoke when they came to Atlanta. So he still maintains that relationship. But getting back to what you said, how, music can really help you. Butch's music got me through my divorce 10 years ago. The album Sycamore Meadows, the album I Liked You Better When You Had No Heart are two albums that I listened to constantly during that whole transition period. So yes, music has a way of, helping you deal with a lot of different things going on.
Yeah. Kind of weird because not too long after I got their Blackberry Smoke's debut record is when I went through my divorce. It was a good thing, I wasn't too down about it, but and that album's pretty raucous. They were full of piss and vinegar at that point, and I was living it up, I guess you could say, and I met a lot of new friends and, starting over and stuff. So that was kind of the soundtrack to my year. But a lot of late nights at the town I was living in at the time. At the time, they had a bowling alley, which had a really awesome bar in it. And the guy who owned the bar liked to use me as a guinea pig for new drinks. He was concocting, so on the weekends
That's a good gig.
Yeah. So on the weekends, I'd go in there with a fistful of cash, and I know like Friday and Saturday night, I'd go in each night with like $100. I'd stick a 20 aside so I could go out to the truck stop and have breakfast afterwards. But I'd go in and Doug would be like, here, I came up with this one. Let me know what you think. Ride down to the truck stop afterwards and have breakfast. Or actually, I wasn't having breakfast. I had these what they're called Mexican platters at this truck stop, which people would be like, how can you eat that being that drunk? And I was like, oh, it's freaking delicious, and I would never have a problem. And then we'd go back to my apartment and, crank music till like 8 or 9 in the morning. I'd take a nap and get up to work 2 in the afternoon or what have you. I'm like, how the hell are you doing it? And I'm like, I love life. Woo! I'm free after 5 years.
Know the feeling. Yeah, absolutely. Again, music does have that connection with people. And that's, really where when you utilize music as that tool for comfort or that tool for joy, it always seems to do the job. It's like the perfect medicine sometimes. And
that's one of the things I like, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. I don't know if you're even aware of it, but like on Facebook, Blackberry Smoke has the Blackberry Smoke Brothers and Sisters page. Their fan base is really, is like a familial vibe to it. Mm-hmm. It has a real family vibe to it. I've never, I've been to, I don't know how many shows of theirs or whatever, but I've always met some of the nicest people, there, and then you get to talking to them and it turns out, they've been Blackberry Smoke fans for, like the last 3 records or whatever. And it's like, where the hell have you been? And I've met some people online through that, that Brothers and Sisters page that are the same way. And I've watched them, people going through their trials and tribulations in their personal life, and everybody, gets on there and chats and everything, and everybody there just kind of seems to pick one another up. So kind of a plug for that page, but
I'll have to check that out.
They're starting to get some there. Of course you get a few bad eggs every now and again, but the administrators of the page, they do a good job of weeding that crap out. They do a really good job of, I've never seen any trolls on there as far as that goes, but then you get a couple, like right now, kind of the current bitches is they're only playing 45 minutes opening for Tedeschi Trucks. Well, they're the opening act.
Right.
They're not going to play 2 hours,
Right.
Are you not seeing who's at the top of the ticket, you ding dong?
That's pretty standard,
and they're getting on there and they're like, this is bullshit. Blackberry Smoke's only playing 45 minutes. And this other band's like, playing an hour and a half, 2 hours. And well, it's their tour.
That's been one of the things that has stopped me from starting a Facebook page for our podcast is, as we continue to grow and get more listeners and whatnot, I don't want to be sitting on Facebook 24/7 having a full-time job of deleting posts. I don't want to do it because it always seems like every music page that I'm on, there always seems to be just some, idiots that come on and just, we live in that time in society that, everyone's opinion, they view their opinions as fact. They view their opinions as they're right and everybody else is wrong. And there's just no discussion, whether it's a music page, whether it's a news article. I stopped reading the comment sections on news articles just because it looks like the end of the world. If you ever want to have some fun and just, if you're feeling down and you want something to pick you up, go over to the Steve Perry music fan page. And when you see the people that are on there, you will instantly feel better about your life, no matter where you're at, because there are people that are on that page. There are women that are on that page that feel, for whatever reason, they are going to be the next Miss Steve Perry. And it's not just one, it's not just two, it's a lot of them. And they're all...
Yeah, I've noticed Steve Perry...
Wow.
Female fans are...
Wow.
Yeah.
It is. If you want to see what hell looks like, go over there and that'll give you the indication that this holy, I mean, so, when I go on pages like that, or there's been other pages, it just seems like it just gets out of control. It's so hard to maintain. And I've been asked, to create a Facebook page, and I just haven't had the motivation just because I don't know if I want to do it, but.
Well, so this one, it's Blackberry Smoke Brothers and Sisters page. The main administrators, which are a couple, Eric and Trish, I won't say their last name just in case. I mean, people know who they are on the page, obviously, but they do a mighty fine job of keeping people's asses in line. As a matter of fact, a few years ago, I stepped out of line and quickly got my ass put back in line by them, and everything's been fine ever since. But they run a tight ship. I mean, Eric, the husband, they call him the sheriff for a reason. They'll throw your ass in jail, pretty quickly. But,
yeah, that's good.
It's a really cool community they have with fans, and Britt gets on there, and Paul gets on there, and Brandon gets on there, It's
awesome.
really, really cool.
That's awesome.
They get together these meetups in, different cities or whatever. And, before shows, and it's a really cool, I guess it would be similar, maybe, obviously not on the same scale, but kind of like what the Grateful Dead had back in the day, but obviously not nowhere near as big or as Stone, but, but I mean, they have meetups and, get-togethers and what have you.
Well, maybe when this podcast is released, you can drop the link over on the Facebook page, and maybe
I will definitely do.
Awesome. So moving on to After Like an Arrow is the album they're currently on tour with, and that's Find a Light, which I really connected with. I really love this record. From the first song, Flesh and Bone, Run Away From It All is just a great, great track. The Crooked Kind, Medicate My Mind, which is become a standard at their shows now. Let Me Down Easy is a good tune. Mother Mountain I love. Best Seat in the House. I've Got This Song. I just love this record.
That song right there, back to the ballads and things, I guess. Must be a balladeer at heart and didn't realize it, but that song has gotten me through so much in the last year and a half since it came out. You know, that song really struck a nerve with me because it was right. I got the CD right around the time I was able to get back to work and getting back on my feet and my health issues in check. And, you know, and it was like, yeah. And then, you know, I had have a friend, Valerie, that she was going through a lot of personal shit at the same time. And, you know, it was like, here, check this tune out, you know. And it brought her to tears. And so that's kind of that song is kind of our, you know, like our song, you know, but must be something with the damn ballad. I never realized that.
You're a softy, Crash. That's what that's what you're telling me. You're a softy.
Maybe all these female friends I've had all over the years always call me teddy bear or onto something. I think they're telling you something, man. I think they're right. Yeah, I thought they're smoking something.
No. I mean, you know, your ballad, your love for the ballads shows that off. So it
usually has something to do with something with the lyrics in them. I don't know. Mm-hmm. You know, but I mean, Scare the Devil is not a ballad in that one. Off the first album, for some reason, grabs me. I don't know what it is.
That's one of the things with Blackberry Smoke too. Is their writing. I mean, Charlie Starr writes a lot of the material. Just really well crafted songs that have a lot of meaning to it. Songs that can connect with you on different levels. And he's evolved as a songwriter too. I mean, if you look back at some of their earlier stuff to, you know, what it is now. I mean, the band Blackberry Smoke has their sound, right?
Right.
They have evolved with the subject matter of what they write about, the way they present the song, the way they tell the story of the song. You know, if you look back, you know, all the way from their first record, there has been an evolution, and that's what I always enjoyed. For me, you know, outside of like a band like AC/DC, which you've heard one AC/DC song, you've heard them all, but that's fine because they all sound awesome.
Yeah.
I need an artist to evolve with me. You know, I need an artist to grow as I'm growing as a person. And I like when a band does that. And Blackberry Smoke is a perfect example of a band that's been able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, you can always tell it's Blackberry Smoke, but it's like kind of like with Richie. You can always tell it's him, but there's always a little something that it's different from the last. And I mean, I think it says a lot for, you know, them as musicians and as songwriters, and, you know, or Charlie as a songwriter.
You know, I almost think that it's one of the benefits of the way the music industry is now. And we've touched on this before, where with Richie Kotzen, right? So when you're a big act on a major record label and you have hit after hit after hit and your popularity is out of this world, it's very hard for you to evolve. It's very hard for you to do something different without pushback from your fan base. And this is kind of an odd example, but just kind of follow along, if you will. So if Britney Spears decided to do a rock record, right? Or an acoustic bass record, how many in her fan base would that connect with? Because she more or less has released the same record over and over again. And I'm sure Britney Spears probably wants to do something else. I'm sure many artists want to do something else. But when you're a slave to the record label and they own you, it's really difficult to do that. When you're a band, when you're a band like Blackberry Smoke, where you're on a record label, but you have the independence of an independent artist. You have a lot of freedom to do what you want. When you're Richie Kotzen, when you're Richie Kotzen, you have the freedom to do what you want. When you're Butch Walker, you have the freedom to do what you want. That is great for the music fan of that artist. If you want to hear the same thing rolled out over and over again, go listen to pop music. Go listen to country pop, because that's what you'll get, and you'll be happy with that.
Did you happen to catch Charlie's interview with Eddie Trunk a week or so ago?
I did not. I got to check it out.
I'll send you the link. He was on Eddie Trunk, besides the usual Eddie Trunkness that you get, he brought up the fact that they were, of course, the last 3 or 4 records they've released independently on their own through their own 3-legged records. And then essentially, other than, Zach Brown's label, which Zach Brown basically was just distribution, I mean, granted it was on Southern ground, but, he wasn't telling them what to write or how to be or whatever. Eddie Trunk was like, has a major record label ever called you guys? And Charlie's like, not while I've been by the phone or, something along those lines. And he's like, I can't believe that, and he's like, I used to, of course, he brings up, I used to be an A&R guy and da-da-da-da-da. I still know some people. So, I'll have to, make some calls or whatever for you. And I'm thinking, Eddie, back off. For one, they don't need a major. They're doing just fine.
Right.
And I don't think, and judging by Charlie's tone, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, I don't really think they'd be all that interested if a major record label called.
Not at this point. I mean, if they were first starting out, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe yes, the lure of the major record label would be attractive. But like you said, they've got a fan base. A major record label is not going to increase that fan base. They're not going to put them on MTV. They're not going to put them, or position them. They're just not going to do that.
Right. And they've been on CMT and
right.
GAC by themselves. So what's a major going to do?
Nothing.
I was just thinking, shut up, Eddie. You're stuck in the 80s.
The only thing the record company's going to do is tell them what to put on a record and take a cut of the pie when that stuff starts to sell. That's the only thing a record company is going to do. If they're on their own,
probably tell them to cut their hair and how to dress.
Right, and now that they have their own record company, they distribute everything on their own. They keep everything basically. After production costs are paid for, after studio time is paid for, they got to pay their road crew. They keep everything. Everything they put out, they make. Why would I don't understand why someone, unless you're a pop music star, I don't know why you'd want to be on a major record label.
And Eddie brought up Rival Sons, and of course, how he had to pat himself on the back that he's championed Rival Sons for years. Well, now they're signed to Atlantic, after being on Earache for all these years, which is actually Blackberry Smoke's European label. Rival Sons was on Earache for their first 3 or 4 records or whatever, but now they're on Atlantic. And he's like, it's about time they got signed by a major label. And I'm like, honestly, I heard more buzz about their first several records than I have about anything about a new Rival Sons record being on Atlantic. Yeah. Atlantic's PR people aren't doing their job.
I love Rival Sons too. I've been into Rival Sons for, the past decade, but like you said, they got signed to Atlantic. I had no idea they were on a major record label. Oh. I got their new record. I think I heard that for the first time that they were on Atlantic Records like probably 4 months ago, and I had to get up and go look. I'm like, oh yeah, it is on Atlantic. So I had no idea, and it's certainly not helping. I saw Rival Sons in May. No, it wasn't May. Was it May? Maybe at House of Blues. It wasn't. I mean, it was sold out, but it was a House of Blues. I mean, that's a 1,500 capacity place. Now they're going to be doing a tour with Stone Temple Pilots. They're playing the Aragon Ballroom, which is I think 3,000 to 4,000. I want to say. I could be wrong, but
that'd be a good show.
Yeah. I mean, I may go to that, but a major. I mean, they're going to get there anyway. I mean, I don't understand the motivation for a major record label. Maybe they're getting money. Maybe it's about money, and kudos to them if they're doing that. I know Rival Sons is huge in Europe and in the UK, but they haven't really been able to match that in the US. So I don't know. But yeah, getting back to your point with Blackberry Smoke, I don't see what a major record label would do for them at this point.
I don't either. I was just sitting there going, "Shut up, Eddie." But between that and his one, talking about when he saw them at Rocklahoma or whatever, the connection between Jackal and Blackberry Smoke. Like, I guess Jesse had told Eddie how, he had worked with them on that first record and, took them on their first real tour and what have you. And then, of course, Eddie wanted to go into business for himself about how Jesse, should have been paying him for being on stage all that time there at Oklahoma with them, and I'm just like, thankfully I didn't shut the interview off then, because I really can't stand Eddie Trunk, and especially since he got on the Richie Kotzen bandwagon. I remember the first time we ever had Richie on there, I was just like, well, this is going to be good for Richie because of Eddie Trunk's reach. But then I was just like, I hope Eddie don't actually really like him all that much, because then I know what's going to happen. And then lo and behold, now he likes to go around and take all sorts of credit. And I'm just sitting there going, oh crap, not now Blackberry Smoke too. But
I like what Eddie does for the genre. Because let's face it, there's not a lot of voices that has his platform to speak about rock music and new rock music. I think that's a wonderful thing. I think he does a great job carrying the flag, carrying the torch for rock music. And I don't think anybody would dispute that. I do get a little put off how he tries to put himself in everything and make it about him.
Like he's a member of the band.
Right. Quite honestly, and I don't know if this is true. This is pure speculation. But it wouldn't surprise me if the artists or bands that act like quote unquote friends of Eddie only do the show because they know he has the platform. They know
they tolerate him.
They tolerate him because, and I'm sure there are a few that genuinely have a relationship with him, and I'm not going to dispute that. But some of the things that he says, and then when he tries to walk back things, he does it incorrectly. I listen to Eddie. I like listening to his show. He has exposed me to new bands and new artists. Yes, he has. I'll admit that. But it doesn't always have to be about him. And I think that's the unfortunate thing that he's kind of taken on. And it seems to have gotten worse and worse and worse over time, where, sometimes when you're listening to his show, you're just like, Jesus, just stop it already. Okay. We get it. It's like, so
I was that way for a long time with him as far as that goes. And I would, if he had anybody on that I was remotely interested in, I'd listen to him. And then I had a chance to meet the guy. And now I'll only listen to him, like, say, if Richie's on, or like this time Charlie was on. Other than that, he can go fly a kite. When I had the chance to meet him, and when I went up to introduce myself to him, I just went up to introduce myself, and he basically turned his nose up at me and like, who the hell are you to put your hand out to me? And then when I was introduced to him by the artist, then all of a sudden he wanted something to do with me because the artist and I are friends. And it was the artist making the introduction. And I was just like, yeah, go fuck yourself. But it was just like, to him, it's a popularity contest. Yeah. Anyways, that's all I'll say about that. But, it's just, anyway. But well, I agree. He does a lot for music, rock music.
He does. Right. No, I mean, no, he does a lot. And, he is a strong voice in the genre. I just don't like everything he has to say.
Right.
And, I remember, was it when Janie Lane died from Warrant, he passed away. Eddie gets on his show and he starts talking about, or it was either on his show or on his Twitter feed or something like that. And he mentioned how he made the obituary for Janie Lane. And I'm just like, are you serious? Are you kidding me? You feel the need to promote that and tell people about that? And that put me off a little bit. That was like,
He was saying he wrote Janie's?
No, not that he wrote Janie Lane's obituary, but he was mentioned in either the obituary or like the remembrance, how they remember somebody or whatever.
Yeah.
It was very low class. It was like, come on, man, this isn't about you. Okay. The guy just died. Shut the hell up,
Yeah.
But anyway,
Jamie's death's a sensitive subject for me.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that off air.
But yeah, I mean, getting back to Blackberry Smoke though, I first saw them live for the first time on their acoustic set, on their acoustic tour. And
lucky you.
Yeah. And I mentioned this to you. We were talking on DM and on message. I've seen a lot of shows, as you know, I mean, I go to a lot and you've seen a lot of shows. It was the first time in a long, long time where a band sounded perfect. Like they sounded exactly like the album. I remember being at the show, and I don't know if it was the second night I went or the first night, but I closed my eyes, and because that gives you a different experience when you're hearing live music and you close your eyes, because you lose the visual, you just hear the music. And I listened for a few moments with my eyes shut, and I just said to myself, "Man, that's fantastic. That is close to perfect. That is as perfect as you possibly could be." And, that's a testament to their musicianship, and really owning their craft. The music is not complicated. It's very simple, but sometimes the simplicity is often what's so great about it.
Less is more.
Yes. And I think and this is not a dig at all, less is more. They've mastered that. And they can make less is more sound so rich and so full when you're hearing them. That's a testament to a band that really can command the stage and really know their instruments. Just awesome show.
Yeah, I would give my left arm. Well, maybe not. Well, crap. I got tattoos on both arms. But yeah, I would give my left leg to see them in an all acoustic setting. Because you see, you got the EP that, the Southern Round Sessions and, the radio shows that they've done over the years and, different meet and greets they've done like at music stores or whatever. They did like a half-hour set. They did one, I don't know how many years ago. For some reason, I wanted to say it was in Michigan, but I could be wrong. And it was on YouTube. Somebody filmed it, really nicely, and it was on YouTube. But to see him in a setting like that would just, I was really bummed they didn't come around here.
And they might. I mean, I think with the success that tour had, I could see them doing it again, and I think it's also helps them too. What did the great Don Henley once say? If you want to succeed in this industry, you've got to have a very short-term memory. When you're up there playing song after song, the same song night after night, and Blackberry Smoke does kind of break it up a little bit. But when you have a chance to do a leg of a tour with just acoustic, it does keep it interesting. And, I could see a band like that doing that again because it was a successful tour. And I think they enjoyed themselves. I mean, the second night that I saw them in Rockford's own Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick came on and jammed "I Want You to Want Me" on stage with them acoustically, which was an awesome thing to see. Just kind of knowing them and knowing, not knowing them personally, but knowing that they seemed to enjoy what they did on stage during that tour. I could see them circling back and doing that again.
Well, maybe they'll make it an annual thing,
I'd love it.
Take a month out every year, month or two, and do an acoustic thing. That would be stellar.
Absolutely. I mean, and we're halfway through 2019 at this point. They do seem to be putting out a record every 2 years. So, next year they'll probably do a new release. I know they were going to Europe. Or they come back from Europe already? And of course, they're doing that tour with the record company. That sounds like such a weird name for a band.
Yeah, they just got back right before you saw them.
Okay. So they were in Europe. I don't know if they plan on going anywhere else after this leg. I mean,
I think it may have been with Eddie Trunk, but I think from what they said is here in the next month or two, here in the next couple months at least, they're going to put out a double live record DVD thing from their Thanksgiving Tabernacle show from last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, finish out like the year touring here. I think here's it. They're going to do, you know, the U.S. tour, you know, up till like December. And then he said the plan is maybe go in and do the next record while they're off for the holidays, like how they do it all the other times.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, I look forward to it. I mean, it definitely will be.
I can't wait to see that Tabernacle show because, you know, they had, you know, Preston Holcomb up there who you've seen with them, Benji, Shanks or whatever, you know, that's out with them right now, you know, on guitar and percussion. And, you know, they had the Black Betty, you know, background singers with them at the Tabernacle show. And they always have, you know, various hometown guests or whatever. But that's the one thing I hope in my lifetime is I can make it to one of those, either one of their July shed shows there in Marysville, Tennessee, where they have like what they call the Brothers and Sisters Reunion, you know, where, I mean, people come from all over the world for those two shows, or one of their Thanksgiving weekend Tabernacle shows, kind of a goal. But because, you know, they got the hardcore of hardcore fans travel from all over the world for those. Basically, like, I guess it would be obviously not on the same scale, but, you know, like how Kiss fans used to have Kiss conventions. But, you know, now these are just big Blackberry Smoke meetups with, you know, fans from all over the world. I just think that'd be neat to meet a bunch of like-minded folk from wherever.
Yeah, I got to get myself to that. That sounds really cool.
Yep, they do. I think it's every July they do the shed there in Marysville, Tennessee. And it's called the Blackberry Smoke or Brothers and Sisters Reunion. And then the holiday homecoming there, Thanksgiving weekend. It's like they usually do 2 days. I think it's 2 days. The day after Thanksgiving, you know, and then, you know, 2 days after Thanksgiving, they're at the Tabernacle there in Atlanta. You know, but I mean, people come from all over the world for them.
And I think on this next tour with the record company, I think they're also going to play in Madison too, which is about an hour. They're playing in Madison, Wisconsin, on this tour too. So maybe I'll check them out in Madison. Maybe I'll go to all 3 shows, Crash.
There you go.
I'll go to Madison and both shows at the House of Blues, and I'll completely be Blackberry smoked.
Overdosed.
Yeah. I think that might be a possibility for me, actually. And knowing the buddy who I usually go out of my I usually go to all my concerts with, I think he'll be up for it too. He'll be like, "Let's do it."
Road trip.
There you go.
Yeah, it's like last time I saw them, which was it was April 21st, 2018. Surprised I remember the date, but my buddy Luke there in Waukene or whatever, and this guy he's a hardcore metalhead. It's like Slipknot and, you know, those type bands. You know, that's what he's into. You know, he likes Jackal and stuff like that. But I'd play Blackberry Smoke when I was living with him. You know, and he'd be like, "It's a little too country for me," and it's like, just go. You know, and I mean, I bought the ticket, so, you know, and I paid for the gas and everything, so it's not like you're out anything. You just had to buy your own alcohol at the show. Okay, fine. You know, so we went, and, you know, at the end of it, he said, you know, a little too country. He goes, but when they rock, Jesus, they rock. You know, and he had a really good time. He goes, I'll be honest. He goes, it was a lot better than I was expecting it to be.
They put on a great show.
Then, yeah, they had Tyler Bryant and the Shakedown opening for him too. That tour, that was fucking killer. But, you know, we went back and met him afterwards or whatever, and, you know, I had a real good time hanging out with them. I think I told you the story offline or whatever about that show as far as Britt and everything, Britt and Charlie and everybody. But, you know, after being sick and what the doctors had said, you know, it was pretty cool to, you know, be well enough to make it to that show. And
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, but Luke was like, "Damn, that was a lot better than I was expecting. Still a little too much country, but like, damn it!
If I could make
get off the country, hang up."
Well, yeah, I mean, it is country, but it's not. It's country rock, and I love that kind of stuff. But if I could make a suggestion, for who to tour with, a good tour with Blackberry Smoke, a good opening act, one would be the band called Midlands, which is a great act. I think they're out of Texas, I want to say. And
I've seen them.
Yeah, they're really good. Or I'd love to see them with Sturgill Simpson, who I love too.
Okay.
I'd love to see Blackberry Smoke tour with either one of those guys. Speaking of Tyler Bryant, I was just able to see him a couple weeks ago with a band. Cool. Oh, his new record's awesome. His band is awesome. I did not know that Brad Whitford from Aerosmith's son is in Tyler Bryant and the Shakedown. Did not know that.
Yeah.
But the band that opened for him, I think it's maybe a co-headline or whatever it was, the Temperance Movement from Glasgow.
Yeah,
is a band.
They did a couple tours of Blackberry over there years ago.
Oh my God. Incredible band. The singer's got
around the whippoorwill.
Yeah, the singer's got like a Joe Cocker, Rod Stewart type, old Rod Stewart, like every picture tells a story, Rod Stewart. And
good raspy, throaty.
Yeah. Oh, great musicianship. I mean, seeing them with Tyler Bryant is just a jam. I saw them with Blackstone Cherry 4 or 5 months ago too, and that was a great show. But Tyler Bryant is another definite up-and-coming band that needs to be recognized. Yeah,
I agree. I've followed Tyler for, I don't know how long it's been since the photographer Robert M. Knight put out his documentary Rock Prophecies. He featured Tyler in it, and I mean, Tyler's 17 maybe in it.
Yeah.
And then he went off to Nashville and, so I followed him ever since. And then finally getting to see him, when he, was announced they were opening for Blackberry, I was like, I don't care what I got to do. If I got to hitchhike to Salina, because it was like 2 hours from where I was living at the time. I was like, I don't care if I have to hitchhike, and I was really glad I did. One show I'd kill to see is like Blackstone Cherry and Blackberry Smoke do a co-headline.
That'd be cool.
Deal.
Yeah.
And they're friends. I mean, they, jam together and what have you, but I just think that would be one hell of a show.
There are many possibilities, and they are a great band. If you enjoyed this conversation, please go and check them out either on their site at blackberrysmoke.com. Check out their Facebook page that Crash mentioned, their Twitter account, their Twitter feed, and go check out their music, whether it's on Spotify, whether it's on YouTube, or any other platform that you listen to music, and get your new music from. Just a fantastic band, fantastic live band. Crash, I appreciate you doing another show, another podcast. We'll think of another subject to talk about, whatever you want to discuss. If you want to talk about a specific artist or a topic in music you want to talk about, let me know.
We'll think of something.
Absolutely, man. Well, hey, I appreciate it. Once again, this is Jay Scott, and this is The Hook, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again. Thank you.